Hi there, my name is Heidi Ferris and welcome to Water Stories. I'm here with Growing Green Hearts in partnership with the Capital Region Watershed District to talk to you about rain gardens for churches. There are some great stories out there, and perhaps you'll be creating a story and rain garden of your own sometime. When it comes to rain gardens, we're going to talk about some of the basics. We'll also share with you some pictures, some keywords, some stories, and some resources. But know that if you have questions, you can contact me or the Watershed District. My email is heidi@growinggreenhearts.com. Happy to answer questions that you may have. So on that note, let's get going. I'm going to share my screen so you can see some pictures and our agenda of what we're doing today. All right. So like I said, I'm Heidi with Growing Green Hearts, partnering with Capital Region Watershed District. And this project is funded by grant dollars from Capital Region Watershed. So thank you very much for that. And part of it is the Connect the Drops programming, bringing faith, science, and youth leaders together in care of water and community. So if you'd like to follow the stories and projects, feel free to use social media to do so. There are some hashtags and some ways to connect. Also, please know that Lindsay Schwantes is the Community Outreach Coordinator for Capital Region Watershed District and is really great at answering questions. Be sure to check out the Capital Region Watershed District website, the link you can see on the screen there. They even have a tool where you can put in your church address, your home address, and see where you're located in the watershed. So I'll be sharing with you some maps and hope that you can find and orient yourself on those maps, but know that there is the watershed tool where you can find yourself in the watershed as well. Speaking of maps, here we go. Where are we and who are we? Well, when I ask people of all ages that, one thing that they will say is a Minnesotan or the location where they live. I'm curious where you live in relation to water. Are you close to the Mississippi? Is there a local lake or pond that you walk around? Perhaps you identify yourself also as a child of God by your first or last name, by gender, by race, by family group. All of these are ways we identify ourselves, and all of those have to do with water, because water is part of who we are as human beings on planet Earth. It's part of our interconnected systems of hydrosphere, geosphere, atmosphere, and biosphere. So land, air, water, living things are connected, and we are part of those. One of the things we forget to do, though, is creatures of this planet and stewards of this planet. Sometimes we forget to put ourselves in those systems. So right now, I'm asking you to take a look at the watershed map and find out where you live. A watershed is the land area drained by a river system. So if you can imagine, like a cereal bowl is high on the sides and usually a bit lower in the middle. Well, the watershed districts have some higher spots and then lower spots. We know that water always flows downhill. And so when we look at this Capital Region Watershed District, we can follow some of those arrows and see where the water flows downhill towards the Mississippi River. Now, not all water flows into a creek or lake right away. Some of it soaks into the ground, and that's a really, really good, healthy thing for our water quality and for our communities, especially a community like Capital Region Watershed District in the mainly St. Paul area, although we touch on a little bit of the suburbs with a little bit of Lauderdale and Roseville, a little bit of Maplewood in there. But this area is really populated. So there are a lot of hard surfaces, which means that we need to really work together as community in extra care of that water. Sinking water into the ground is a great way to do it. And that's where rain gardens come in. So here's a church. Notice in the background, the building with the hard roof. And then also in the middle ground there, we see the parking lot. And then there are some areas that we would call pervious. So Pervious means water can soak in. Impervious means water can't. Where water can't soak in, those impervious surfaces like rooftops and parking lots and streets, those hard impervious surfaces, they capture leaves like you see in the picture here. They also capture other pollutants, and when water flows across, water picks up those things and brings them to the storm drain. Unless, of course, there's another pervious area like a rain garden or a lawn that can capture that water. So in this picture, you see a rain garden front and center, and that area has a lot of native plants. Native plants are have really deep root systems, so they're wonderful tools for rain gardens. Those deep root systems, by the way, when we see turf grass, usually I have people hold up their pinky because your pinky finger is about the depth of the roots of turf grass. But when we think about native plants, now go instead of 2 to 3 inches, 2 to 3 feet deep, and keep on going if you choose something like blazing star liatris that has root systems up to 16 feet deep. So these are superheroes of the plant world, native plants, and we have a lot of wonderful plants from Minnesota prairie biomes that we can use in our rain garden. So that's what you see going on here with the plants. And this rain garden, as part of this church, is also timed to have blooms different types of year. This photo was taken in the fall of 2020, and they still have some purple, I think that's a New England aster blooming there. The blue stem and Indian grass grasses have some reddish orange hues to them, and even the milkweed has some yellow leaves. So even late September, some beautiful colors there. And throughout the year, other plants are blooming and showing off their beauty, which is also helpful to pollinators. So this rain garden is really doing wonderful things for water quality because it's helping the water to soak in. It's also reducing the amount of pollutants that would go into that storm drain in the lower right-hand corner. It's reducing that amount in the storm drain. And then also it's helping out pollinators, adding beauty to the neighborhood, and also filtering some of that air by getting taking carbon dioxide from the air, sinking the carbon into the ground, into those deep roots, and putting oxygen back. So superheroes at work in this rain garden. Now this picture is from McAllister Plymouth United Church that worked in partnership with Capital Region Watershed District, as well as some other groups to create signage for their beautiful rain gardens that go around their church in different locations. So you can see a little cross section of a rain garden here in the picture, where it's a divot. It's not a garden where we're growing rain per se, but it is where we might dig down a little bit and to get the water to flow down, and then the plants go in the middle. So the water soaks in, and that's where those roots are doing the work of filtering, cleaning the water. Here's a picture of McAllister Plymouth United Church and how they have rain gardens even by their sign. So near the parking lots, near the sidewalks, as well as by their front. So they're really doing some great community outreach in teaching and caring for God's creation. This is a picture from McAllister Plymouth United Church where the preschoolers enter the building. So they have a wide variety of butterfly plants. Those tall pronto pup looking plants are blazing star liatris, which the butterflies absolutely love. You can also see some milkweed there. So they have some wild onion plants, as well as a variety of grasses. And this is right next to the parking lot. So we have a pervious surface, meaning the rain garden, next to an impervious surface, the parking lot. Now here's a rain garden at Luther Seminary where water might flow across the sidewalk or across the lawn and then go into this larger rain garden. They have a variety of grasses and plants growing there. And here's McAllister College that has an even bigger rain garden in the center of their campus. And this one, some might even say it's an infiltration basin because it's so big, but it's capturing water from different angles. And it's also biodiverse, meaning a lot of different plant life going on that's supporting birds, butterflies, pollinators, and other critters. Now here's a residential rain garden. So some churches have a property that a rain garden is a good fit. But if not, know that residents can also have rain gardens. So this residential rain garden is capturing water from the rooftop. And they wanted also to support those butterflies. So you can see liatris in bloom along with some other plants, and looks like some blue flag iris, as well as some black-eyed Susans, maybe some butterfly weed in the background, some anise hyssop, all wonderful plants for the ecosystem. So rain gardens are powerful tools to help our water. And how is it that we care for our water, and why, and what does this have to do with watersheds? Well, first of all, a watershed is the land area drained by a river system. If you look at the picture in the lower left, we see the large Mississippi River basin. And that water is drained and eventually goes to the Gulf of Mexico. In Minnesota, there's a place where water, one storm, whether snowstorm or rainstorm, can go to 3 different major outlets. It can flow down the Mississippi River. It can also flow downhill northwards to Hudson Bay, or downhill and then through the Great Lakes. So in Minnesota, we really are a headwaters state in more ways than one. But those larger watersheds get divided into smaller watersheds or sub-watersheds as well. And that you can see in the picture of Minnesota. Well, it kind of looks like Minnesota, right? Because the watersheds on the edges, they don't follow our human-made geographic boundaries. Water flows downhill, and it is connected with the land, air, water, and living things. So we try and control things as humans, but nature does its own thing. And that's why this picture of Minnesota doesn't have hard and fast boundaries like you may have seen on other maps. But it is showing some of the larger watersheds in Minnesota. And if you can find on that Minnesota watershed map, the Twin Cities, that sub-watershed is further divided into more watersheds. So we are in one of those watersheds, the Capital Region Watershed District, and there are about 40 staff members that are working to care for water in this area. And one of the ways, just one of the many ways they do that, is with rain gardens. I love the fact that there are 750 rain gardens in Capital Region Watershed District alone since 2005. If you look at this map, maybe you can find a rain garden or two or many near where you live, maybe where you worship also, maybe where you learn, play, work. The more rain gardens we have, the more improved water quality we have. So we're here to talk about rain gardens because water brings us together. We know that rain gardens are helpful, and let's also consider rain gardens for your church grounds. Maybe next to the parking lot or sidewalk, maybe where water could be captured off of the roof. Maybe there's an open spot in a natural playground or an area where, if your church has a preschool, so many different opportunities. We do know that, yes, water brings us together, and those rain gardens are helpful. The 750 rain gardens, that number is so huge, from Capital Region Watershed District have removed a lot of pollutants. Take a look at the facts. When it comes to theology, I'm a big fan of how Ched Myers describes watershed discipleship. He writes, "We've lost our way as creatures of God's biosphere, but the map into creation can lead us home. The inviolable fact is, wherever we reside, city, suburb, or rural area, we are deeply intertwined within and dependent upon this bounded hydrologic system. Precipitation hits ridges and flows either into our watershed or a neighboring one and is drained by a local creek, river, or stream, even if that creek, river, or stream is buried under concrete. The area covered from the water's origination in the hydrologic cycle to its endpoint in a lake or sea represent a unique mix of habitats that influence each other. Forests and wetlands, fields and meadows, rivers and lakes, farms and towns. Each of us lives in a watershed, no matter how ignorant we may be about it. So, to recap, 5 reasons for rain gardens. 1, it reduces the runoff water into storm drains. Those storm drains take the water very quickly to the nearest river, lake, wetland, or stream. So, especially with climate change, when we have increased intensity of our rain events, our snow melts, we can reduce that water into storm drains, which then reduces pollution. So that's number 1. Number 2, we get to filter water to reduce pollutants. That's what those native plants are doing. They're filtering the water, and that reduces pollution. 3rd, the deep-rooted plants sink carbon. So that's a win for the atmosphere also. And 4, biodiverse habitat for pollinators. Sure, you can have a rain garden with 3 or 4 species, which makes maintenance really easy, but you can also add a number of plant species, up to 15 or 20 in a very small space. This is how prairies work. They're biodiverse. And they also help to feed those birds, butterflies, pollinators, and other critters. So in addition to biodiverse habitat for pollinators, we've got a big high five because rain gardens help to replenish groundwater. We, over the past century, have been pumping out more water from groundwater than we have been putting back in. So getting water to soak into the ground is a good, healthy choice. It's kind of like putting money in the bank. It's putting water back into the ground that we can use later as resources if need be. So my next question for you is watershed or pipe shed? Take a look at this map. Perhaps your eye is drawn to the little tiny blue squiggly lines or the thicker rivers labeled Mississippi River, Crow River, Rum River, St. Croix River. And where those dark blue lines start to come together, there's a bit of a hole, if you will. But this is also a populated area. Over time, rivers have been highways. And also, we know from stories of Dakota, both past and present, that Budote is not just a place where the Minnesota River and the Mississippi River come together, but it's also their Garden of Eden, a highly sacred site. And that is also where we have Fort Snelling State Park, the Mall of America, the airport. So Bloomington, St. Paul, Minneapolis, this area right here has major rivers coming together. But we've also lost, look carefully there, we've lost the little blue squigglies. We've lost the tiny creeks and streams. Where did they go? We've removed them or put them underground. And we're learning now that that is not a good choice for water quality. When we remove those pervious surfaces, when we remove and put in hardscape, roads, rooftops, buildings instead, that means more water goes to the storm drains faster. And that increases erosion, and that also makes for poor water quality. So we can ask ourselves, watershed or pipe shed? Well, most of this picture shows watersheds with the yellow boundaries. But this area in the lower right, where it looks almost like a hole, not as many blue squigglies, that we would call a pipe shed. We've replaced the natural hydrologic system with pipes instead, and that leads to poor water quality. Good news, rain gardens help to counteract that. So I encourage you to ask questions. Keep learning about rain gardens and follow the stories. Here are a couple ways that you can do that. And last but not least, I'm going to share the story of some student leaders who used Connect the Drops to move their knowledge to action. They did an engineering design challenge, connecting faith, science, and youth leadership. They noticed that their church parking lot, Peace Lutheran, was connected to or adjacent to a wetland, but that all the pollutants from the parking lot were killing the grass and most likely contributing to some pollution in the wetland. So this group of young women decided to better understand how they could fix that problem, and they learned more about rain gardens. Here are some pictures. They connected their idea of rain gardens, native plants, and filtering and cleaning water with stories from Genesis. They know that God is the source of all things. God made everything in an orderly manner, and God calls humans to love and nurture creation, not conquer, but to nurture, be respectful of, be responsible for. So in this, they learned about rain gardens, about themselves, how they could use their gifts and talents to make the world a more trustworthy place. They also had some fun working together. So in the top right-hand corner, you can see the parking lot and then the wetland area. And in between, that's where the rain garden is now. So they had some just a gentle earthwork done in partnership with the watershed district. And then they have plants, about 1 native plant, tiny little plant plugs, added about 1 per 18 inches, I think they measured. And I believe they had about 12 different species in there, including purple coneflower, echinacea. And there are those ladies at work. So that's a positive youth leadership story in care of water. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was great to explore watersheds, the power of rain gardens, connecting our gifts and talents with needs of the world. Thanks for joining us in this Water Stories.